there is zero evidence to suggest that transgenders going into restrooms have a higher percentage of committing sexual violence or any type of violence than anybody born a man or a woman. Zero evidence to back it up. But there's a lot of evidence to show that kids have a far better chance of being molested going into a church than they do going into a restroom with a transgender.
Brian, you got a problem with Trump going into the dressing room with these underage pageant girls.
I do, yeah.
No, you don't have a problem. You don't have a problem with Nancy Mace complaining about a transgender woman.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
So you are comparing, which is unbelievable. I'm so glad you brought this up. Herb is comparing a guy without permission going into a dressing room with girls naked that are underage to a transgender woman going into a stall and going number one or number two. Herb, are you not, Herb, even David's laughing at this.
I'm laughing because you said number one or number two.
Herb, are you not smart enough, Herb, to distinguish going into a locker room where girls are naked and a man sexualizing it and bragging about it on the Howard Stern show when he knows he shouldn't be in there, to a transgender woman going in there to use a restroom?
Can I defend Herb for a second here?
Because
his point has validity.
I don't think it has any.
No, it does. Because what he's referring, and what at least what Nancy Mace is trying to prevent, is the women who were in that dressing room that you're suggesting that were made uncomfortable because Donald Trump didn't have permission to be in there. Think about how uncomfortable a woman might feel if somebody who appears to be male, regardless of what they identify as, walks into a place where they're also vulnerable.
Let me be very clear on something.
Yeah.
If a transgender woman went into a restroom,
yeah,
and objective and said it on a radio show was to see a bunch of teenage girls naked, and that was their objective, to go into a women's restroom, then I would have just as much a problem of what Donald Trump did. But when you speak to many transgenders out there, like the colleague who works with Nancy Mace, she's not going into that restroom to sexualize Nancy Mace and talk about it on a radio show. When Donald Trump, make no mistake about it, Herb, went into those locker rooms, he said it on the Howard Stern show, he sexualized it. Beautiful women, they're naked, they're changing. And I was the owner, and he said, they let me do it. No, they didn't. Many of those women did not give Donald Trump permission to do so. You are trying to compare something, apples and oranges, to a transgender woman in most cases that goes in there to do her business and leaves and is not going in there for sexual reasons, to a disgusting man and a liable sexual abuser who can't be faithful to one woman who bragged on the Howard Stern show about seeing a bunch of 15 and 16-year-old girls naked and gloating and bragging about it. Herb, with all due respect, there is absolutely no comparison between the two, and you are a moron to try to make that analogy.
I don't like a woman going into a men's room. I don't like a man going into a woman's room.
Guess what? There's a lot of things. Hey, Herb. No, wait. No, you're going to wait now. I don't like Donald Trump winning the election. But guess what? Sometimes in life, we deal with things that we don't like. If it bothers you that much that a transgender man would go into a men's restroom, and by the way, has that ever even happened to you in your life? Have you been affected by trans people going into restrooms, Herb? Have you ever looked around in a bathroom? Oh, I think that's a transgender man. He's or she's making me feel very uncomfortable. Herb, has that ever happened to you in your life? Be honest.
I will be honest. I'll be honest. I was in a bathroom. And a woman who wanted to be a man came into the men's bathroom. Now, it didn't bother me. I wasn't afraid.
It didn't bother you.
I sure didn't like it.
Okay.
I sure didn't like it.
And why didn't you just use the restroom? It's not a matter of an adult.
It's a matter of kids. I know a situation where a young kid went into a men's bathroom. He was about 13 years old, and he saw transgender in there. And it was very upsetting to him. He didn't know how to explain it.
He didn't. Was that your kid, or is that your kid, or
was that your friend? Not my child. It was not my child.
So you guys had so you guys had a conversation after he left the restroom, and you know exactly how he felt. Is that what you're saying? You've already admitted that it hasn't affected you and it doesn't bother you. Yet you call into a radio station and try to compare Donald Trump going into a restroom, or I'm sorry, Donald Trump going into a pageant locker room with teenage girls and sexualizing it to randomly somebody going into a restroom to do their thing and leave. Herb, with all due respect, there is absolutely no comparison between the two. It's a horrible analogy you made. Guess what? I don't like Donald Trump being elected. I don't like the people that he has put in his administration. I don't like a lot of people that support Donald Trump, but I live with it. In life, sometimes we do things that guess what? I don't like extreme religious people, but if they want to be religious and believe in the tooth fairy, they have the right to do so. Okay. Sometimes in life, we shouldn't go after an entire group of people because we might not like or understand something. Herb, does that not make sense to you, Herb? Am I not making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, Brian, but let me explain my point. My point is this. My point is that it can be, we don't want our kids going into a restroom and seeing some transgender in there with them.
Why is that?
Even though why is that? They may not want to.
So can I ask you a question, Herb? May I ask you a question, Herb? But we have no problem with kids going to churches. Children going to churches. How many? No, there's a reason why I bring this up. Thousands of kids have been sexually molested from the clergy. Do you tell people not to go to church and bring their kids to church?
Brian.
Don't Brian me. Answer the question.
I'll answer the question. If you shut up.
Go
there's
answer.
There's a lot of kids that go into Little League Baseball. And the coaches have molested them. Does that mean that we stop Little League Baseball?
You're making my point for me.
Brian,
by the way,
you don't even have, Brian,
now you're going to shut up. Now you're going to shut up. You're making my point for me. There is no, and I notice how you dodged the question about churches because there's a hell of a lot more clergies that have molested children from the churches than coaches on baseball teams. Okay. You made my point for me. And the point is this. There is zero evidence to suggest that transgenders going into restrooms have a higher percentage of committing sexual violence or any type of violence than anybody born a man or a woman. Zero evidence to back it up. But there's a lot of evidence to show that kids have a far better chance of being molested going into a church than they do going into a restroom with a transgender. Have a nice day, Herb. All right, David. Sorry, you weren't a big part of that conversation, but
I appreciate Herb calling. It was a break for me.
So do I. He makes it very entertaining for me.
No, though I want to bring up a counterpoint though to yours. Sure. And I understand the point you're making at is people are worried about their kids getting molested in a bathroom. Right. I'm suggesting if you are transgendered and you what is the barrier for you using the bathroom of your biological sex though? What is the issue with that? That's what I don't understand. Like if you're a female, right, and you want to use the female's restroom and you're in a stall, but you're dressing as a male, why not? I mean, it's the same response, right? Like, I don't understand what the issue is, the biological. If the bathrooms are labeled biologically, men, women, and not having, look, and I don't understand why we just don't, you can just have single bathrooms. And if it's a group bathroom, have one for people who are not, you don't want to specify a gender, put both on them.
Well, listen, I don't think this is a very important issue. I think there are far more important issues that Americans are facing than whether a transgender. Now, people like Nancy Mace and those in the culture wars that talk about these topics 24/7 care more about this than all the gun violence in this country or the healthcare problems that we have in this country, so on and so forth. Nancy Mace is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. She tweets 1,000 times in 2 weeks about how she's so proud of herself because a transgender colleague can't use the same restroom she uses. But yet after a school shooting, thoughts and prayers.